private Caribbean island he owns, one that some have dubbed the Island of Sin.
For years, much of the evidence gathered by investigators, interviews, emails, logs, and more, was sealed under court orders. Victims argued this secrecy protected powerful people.
For years, investigators collected a massive amount of evidence through thorough interviews, detailed emails, extensive logs, photographs, videos, and many other documents. Much of this important material stayed sealed under strict court orders for a very long time. Victims and their legal teams repeatedly argued that this level of secrecy was intentionally created to protect powerful individuals from scrutiny and to stop the full delivery of justice to those who had suffered. The official Department of Justice has now confirmed the existence of tunnels connected to a larger reckoning. 2 separate underground passages have been clearly identified. One is accessible from underwater areas, and another is documented through video evidence. Emails uncovered during the investigations reveal details of torture, intelligence operations, and an obsessive culture of secrecy. The paradise-like machinery that was frequented by members of the global elite hides a far darker reality beneath the surface. In that seemingly innocent image lies a much more disturbing truth. For years, in August 2019, the FBI tore through the veil of secrecy when agents descended upon the island. What they uncovered proved far more disturbing than even the most persistent rumors had ever suggested. Filings submitted by the victims' attorneys repeatedly identified Little St. James as the central location where many of the crimes took place. The secret was that this was no idyllic paradise. Inside the island unfolded some of the most shocking crimes of the 21st century. Even major news outlets ran photo spreads and published opinion pieces focusing on the island's strange architecture and its enigmatic owner. But while all the attention stayed locked firmly on the surface elements, the real story was quietly sinking deeper underground. The entire world became obsessed with the colorful dome on the island. Nobody was asking the tough questions about what existed underground. Nobody was demanding concrete evidence or answers about what was truly being concealed in those hidden spaces. People in positions of power and influence have always sought privacy as a core part of their lifestyle. The obsession with building a temple-like structure and owning a completely private island represented the ultimate form of secrecy and control. Property records clearly show that the island had previously belonged to a venture capitalist, yet it remained largely undeveloped for a significant period. As the investigation continued to pull back the layers under official direction, a dramatic transformation came into view. Millions upon millions of dollars were poured into shaping the terrain, importing thousands of mature trees to create an instant lush environment, and constructing an extensive network of stone-paved paths and volumes that overwhelmed the main residence areas. The sprawling colonial-style villa complex was expanded significantly to include a massive library, multiple reception rooms that opened onto sweeping ocean views, and numerous other luxurious amenities throughout the first decade of the 21st century. Hence, the island functioned precisely as its public image suggested on the surface. It operated as a gathering place for intellectual and political elites from around the world. Architectural and lifestyle magazines at the time praised the owner's refined aesthetic taste in glowing terms. The guests who arrived on the island were not obscure figures who passed through unnoticed. They included Nobel Prize winners, members of influential circles, renowned theoretical minds, and many other highly respected academic and social figures. The first time the government openly acknowledged the court beneath Little St. James, attached to the same presence of such highly respected academic and social figures, created a powerful aura of credibility around the entire island operation. And unconventional logic suggested that a place hosting some of humanity's brightest minds, where discussions ranged freely from quantum physics to the origins of the universe and the future of biology, must surely be a sanctuary of enlightenment and progress. The archive does not provide easy answers, but security measures and controls were explained away as essential for privacy and protection. Evidence begins right here with an active memo and a photograph that inspire a quiet sitting, as someone on the contrary myth of the island cultivated the image of a Department of Justice arch of science, who used his immense wealth to create spaces for profound intellectual conversations. There were no obvious signs visible on the surface at first glance, and private jets would land at nearby airstrips, and guests were ferried to the island by helicopter or luxury boats following the familiar ritual of an exclusive resort experience. The perfection of this carefully maintained facade was complete, including elements like laying hard flooring beneath a Caribbean island setting. Observers who examined the island more closely through satellite imagery and from distant vantage points began to notice unsettling irregularities that defied simple explanations. The anomaly did not lie in any lack of comfort or luxury. Instead, the presence of certain structures defied the basic logic of a peaceful retreat. No photographs accompanied some of the descriptions, and they only heightened the demand to recognize traditions associated with religious architecture. File names and references added layers of mystery. What even more puzzling was the entrance itself. Large double wooden doors stood intricately carved, yet they were blocked by a low barrier through the main doorway, making passage impossible in a conventional sense. Surrounding the building were golden owl statues, a symbol found in Greek mythology representing Athena, or depending on the interpretation, something more ominous tied to ancient rituals. Out of the tropical landscape, forensic auditors and specialists examined the scene. How would an American financier of Jewish heritage who publicly portrayed himself as a religious devotee construct something like this in the most remote corner? Explanations suggested it was forming an unmistakable shape that revealed yet another gradual slope. Its water pressed against smooth epoxy walls at the far end, and in a metallic hatch shut tightly against external access. GPS coordinates embedded in the video matched down to the decimal point from above. The tunnel is no longer merely a theory. Local research confirms it is beyond dispute. The story does not end there. The term charged with the evidence about expanded operators were warned never to discuss certain elements. Department of Justice video art cut through the darkness showing armed men standing on rocky outcrops. A lone figure stands inside the absence of the camera in a New York City department, and physical evidence visible created a troubling image. A strange detail of the place on a Caribbean island welcomes the horizon. The insignia is distinct enough to pause upon. By contrast, and the video shows a shield and a trail that cannot be ignored. It's the presence of this structure is not a continuation of the first heavily symbolic concrete elements that suggested the island was run for simple relaxation. The faint sound of logic from some outsiders could figure stops at a branching junction of what appeared to be an ordinary seaside retreat. Radar and institutional suspicion turned into direct confrontation during the 2019 events. Just markings raised entirely new questions. The Federal Bureau of Investigation and Environmental Protection teams conducted a large-scale raid on Little St. James. This was no longer a casual visit or a simple construction check. Nothing could match the foundation of federal law enforcement entering a domain that had been tightly guarded for decades. An official investigation captured FBI agents in tactical gear within seconds of arrival. And the scale of the underground network was not merely scattered tunnels buried inside Department of Justice documents. The infrastructure was designed independently from the outside world, complete with contempt warnings and legal qualifiers surrounding the words themselves. Investigators discovered an industrial-scale desalination plant capable of supplying fresh water for hundreds of people over an extended period without any reliance on the mainland supply. High-capacity generators were buried underground and linked to a private telecommunications network that ensured constant connectivity while remaining completely beyond the oversight of local services. In another exchange documented in the records, a question helped explain how activities on the island could unfold effectively invisible to external territory. Data gathered from on-site records, cross-referenced with flight logs of the plane registered widely, known as the Lolita Express, began to reveal a chilling logistical pattern. The flights did not move at random. They linked New York, Palm Beach, and other key locations with precision. These words sit alongside logistics updates and maintenance requests for passengers transferred to helicopters or high-speed boats. The archive does not always identify who is speaking, but the presence of these lines inside official government files raises the stakes in a way that cannot be easily set aside. The tunnels are no longer just a question of hidden passages or concealed doorways. They are corridors running parallel to threats, and to suffering, and even to the possibility of murder. And all of it is documented in language that demands real answers from those responsible. The language inside the Department of Justice archive shifts again, describing a form of isolated economy buried inside maintenance mechanisms. The presence of industrial-grade infrastructure on a small private island demonstrated that what occurred there was not impulsive or sporadic behavior. It was organized, planned, and systematically financed to operate continuously despite enormous legal risks. The industrialization of depravity became evident as agents and forensic specialists moved deeper into the buildings. The final veil of mystery was torn away, exposing a reality more stark and horrifying than any earlier speculation had prepared people for. Little Street. James was not simply a setting for Hollywood-style excess. It functioned as an industrialized assembly line of abuse on a scale that shocked even seasoned investigators. Inside the main residence and the scattered bungalow spaces, areas were deliberately configured to strip individuals of their autonomy and dignity. Massage rooms, a term frequently mentioned in victim testimony, bore little resemblance to ordinary therapeutic spaces. They were arranged with professional massage tables, surrounded by sensitive items and devices organized in ways that suggested far more sinister purposes. The tunnels begin to look less like troubling anomalies and more like integral parts of the operation. Still, many of these rooms were designed with locks controlled from the outside or positioned so that sounds could not carry beyond the thick walls. And patterns begin to emerge when considering testimony from survivors such as Virginia and Maria Farmer. When placed within this architectural framework, their accounts become deeply unsettling. They describe underground elements found extending from the central complex. Both properties list shell companies with identities scrubbed from public access. The phrase lifeboat bunker appears inside records related to the temple structure, also beginning to suggest a shared account from former employees. Whatever the outward explanation as a music room or gym, the leading atmosphere within suggested an environment crafted specifically for psychological domination, forcing victims to move through disorienting locations across the island, formed part of a larger structure designed to confuse and control. As permit records describe it as a music pavilion, but the system and building rise in an octagonal form rather than a simple rotated design. Materials came continuously from precise sources in South America and many other regions within the United States. The island functioned as a hub of intake and maintenance for the entire operation. Here, the boundary between person and commodity blurred completely. There was no romance, only coercion enforced by a workforce that included house managers, chefs, and security personnel. Many of these individuals either turned a blind eye to the abuse or actively facilitated it in exchange for generous salaries and other benefits. What shocked observers was not only the nature of the crimes, but the precision and professionalism of their organization. Files detailing financial management and logistics applied to human exploitation optimized the system in ways that created an information infrastructure beneath the surface that may never fully come back up into public view. If the story ended with Epstein as merely an isolated predator operating alone, it would still be horrifying enough. But the evidence points to something far more extensive involving networks of complicity that stretched across continents and touched the highest levels of society. Expanding further on the details revealed through the investigations, the underground passages were not crude dugouts, but engineered with professional construction standards. Concrete walls reinforced with steel, ventilation systems that maintained air quality, and electrical wiring capable of supporting advanced monitoring equipment. Yet all indicate long-term planning. One passage, accessible via an underwater entrance, allowed discreet arrivals and departures by small submersible or diving craft, bypassing the main docks entirely. Video footage from the raids shows agents navigating narrow corridors illuminated by emergency lighting, their footsteps echoing off damp surfaces as they documented every inch. The second tunnel connected directly to the temple-like structure on the hill, descending beneath the blue-striped building that had puzzled onlookers for years. This connection allowed movement between the main villa complex and the more remote areas without ever appearing on the surface paths. Satellite imagery analyzed over multiple years shows how the terrain was reshaped in phases. Initially, the island appeared as a natural teardrop of land covered in vegetation. Then, starting around the early 2000s, massive earth-moving equipment arrived. Thousands of tons of fill material were brought in by barge to level sections and create hidden depressions that could conceal entrances. Mature palm trees and other foliage were imported and planted strategically to mask changes from aerial views. The stone-paved volumes mentioned earlier were not just decorative. They formed elevated walkways and platforms that doubled as covers for subsurface access points. The main residence expanded from a modest colonial villa into a sprawling compound with over a dozen bedrooms, each equipped with on-site facilities that included features like reinforced doors and soundproofing materials. The library and reception rooms were not ordinary spaces for quiet reading or casual conversation. and they contained hidden compartments and bookshelves that swung open to reveal staircases leading downward. Ocean views from these rooms provided a false sense of openness while ensuring that activities inside remained shielded from passing boats. Intellectual discussions did occur, but they often served as cover for vetting potential participants or normalizing behaviors that would otherwise raise alarms. Nobel laureates and theoretical physicists mingled with financiers and politicians, creating an environment where questioning the host's activities felt socially impossible. The aura of credibility protected the operation for years, allowing it to flourish under the guise of philanthropy and scientific advancement. Security measures went beyond simple gates and guards, and cameras with facial recognition capabilities were installed throughout, linked to a central server farm buried in one of the underground bunkers. Motion sensors and pressure plates covered the grounds, while underwater sonar systems monitored approaches from the sea. The desalination plant was a marvel of engineering for its time, capable of producing thousands of gallons of fresh water daily from seawater, complete with backup reservoirs that could sustain the island for months in isolation. Generators ran on diesel stored in large underground tanks, producing enough power to run air conditioning, lighting, and computing systems for hundreds of people. The private telecommunications network included satellite uplinks and fiber optic lines laid directly from the mainland. They encrypted to prevent interception by local authorities. How flight logs reveal a steady stream of arrivals. The Boeing 727, often referred to in media as the Lolita Express, made repeated trips from U.S. airports to nearby islands where passengers transferred to smaller aircraft or boats for the final leg. Maintenance requests in the records detail everything from stocking food supplies to repairing helicopter pads and fueling stations. Passenger manifests, though heavily redacted in some releases, show patterns of young females traveling with older male companions. Helicopters shuttled groups back and forth, their rotors chopping the humid air as they landed on the designated pad near the main villa. High-speed boats darted between Little St. James and its sister island, Great St. James, carrying people and materials under the cover of night. And the massage rooms deserve deeper examination because they appear so frequently in survivor accounts. These were not relaxing spas but chambers equipped with adjustable tables, dimmable lighting, and cabinets stocked with oils, lotions, and other items that could be repurposed for control. Locks on the doors could be engaged from hallways outside, preventing escape once someone was inside. Soundproofing ensured that cries or struggles remained contained. Virginia Giuffre described being brought to these rooms under the pretense of relaxation, only to face coercion and exploitation. Maria Farmer recounted similar experiences, noting the disorienting layout that made it hard to keep track of time or location. Their testimonies, when matched against the physical layout uncovered in the raids, paint a picture of systematic psychological manipulation. The temple structure on the hill remains one of the most enigmatic features. Permit records filed with local authorities described it as a music pavilion, complete with plans for a grand piano, living room area, and bathroom. In reality, the building deviated significantly from those submissions. Its blue and white striped exterior and golden dome evoked religious or ritualistic architecture, complete with the golden owl statues positioned around the perimeter. These owls, symbols associated with wisdom in some contexts or darker deities in others, stood guard over an entrance that led both upward to a viewing platform and downward into the tunnels. Inside, the octagonal layout created odd acoustics and sightlines that could confuse visitors. Whether it served as a site for ceremonies, recordings, or simply intimidation, its purpose clearly extended beyond music. Former employees speaking under conditions of anonymity in various court filings described a workforce divided into those who actively participated and those who simply looked the other way. House managers coordinated schedules to ensure victims were moved between locations without overlap from legitimate guests. Chefs prepared meals tailored to specific dietary needs or preferences that might appeal to young individuals. Security personnel, often recruited from private firms, maintained perimeters and monitored feeds. Salaries were generous and bonuses came for discretion. This complicity extended the operation's reach, turning the island into a self-sustaining ecosystem of exploitation. Financial records seized during the investigations show millions funneled through shell companies with names that obscured their true purpose. Payments for construction, maintenance, and staffing flowed through offshore accounts. The lifeboat bunker reference appears in documents related to emergency preparedness, but context suggests it could refer to reinforced underground spaces designed for prolonged stays or concealment. Whatever the exact terminology, the infrastructure supported long-term uninterrupted activity. As forensic teams cataloged evidence, they found items ranging from digital devices containing vast archives of images and videos to physical restraints and recording equipment hidden in walls. As the scale suggested, not just personal indulgence, but a networked enterprise capable of supplying individuals to a broader circle. The possibility of murder, though not conclusively proven in every case, lingers in the language of some reports where disappearances or sudden departures are noted without satisfactory explanation. Tunnels could have facilitated the movement of bodies or evidence away from the main areas, reducing the risk of discovery. The 2019 FBI raid marked a turning point. Agents in tactical gear swarmed the island, securing the villa, the temple, and the outbuildings within minutes. They breached locked doors, descended into underground spaces, and documented everything with body cameras and forensic photography. Videos from the operation show the moment agents discovered the metallic hatch leading to one tunnel, its epoxy-coated walls gleaming under flashlight beams. Another team located the underwater access point, confirming theories that had circulated for years. The raid yielded computers, hard drives, and paper files that filled multiple shipping containers when removed. In the years following, releases of Department of Justice documents have gradually peeled back more layers. Emails between staff discuss guests in coded terms. Maintenance logs mention repairs to tunnel lighting and ventilation after heavy use. Cross-referencing with victim statements reveals timelines where flights coincided with periods of reported abuse. The industrial nature of the setup, desalination, power generation, independent communications, proves that this was no weekend getaway gone wrong. It was a purpose-built facility engineered for secrecy and sustained operation. Survivors like Virginia Giuffre have spoken publicly about the fear and isolation they experienced. Transported to the island under false pretenses, they found themselves trapped in a paradise that masked hellish conditions. Maria Farmer's early reports to authorities in the 1990s went largely unheeded, allowing the operation to continue and expand. Their courage in coming forward helped build the case that eventually led to raids and arrests, though many questions remain unanswered about the full extent of involvement by others. The obsession with privacy that drew powerful people to the island ultimately contributed to its exposure. Satellite images, flight tracking data, and leaked documents created a digital trail that investigators could follow. What began as rumors of strange architecture grew into confirmed evidence of underground networks and systematic abuse. The Golden Dome, once a curiosity, now symbolizes the hubris of those who believed they could operate above the law. Expanding even further, consider the human cost beyond the immediate victims. Families torn apart, lives derailed, and a generation of young people whose trust and authority was shattered. The global elite who visited may claim ignorance, but the architecture itself, locks on the outside of rooms, soundproofed spaces, hidden tunnels, suggests awareness at some level was unavoidable for anyone spending significant time there. Intellectual conversations about physics or biology took place alongside logistics for exploitation, creating a cognitive dissonance that protected the system. And the underwater tunnel adds another dimension of intrigue. Accessible only by those with diving equipment or small submersibles, it allowed for arrivals that left no trace on the main docks or helicopter pad. Video evidence shows clear signs of use with scuff marks on walls and disturbed sediment at the entrance. GPS data from the raid matches coordinates precisely, confirming its location and extent. This passage could have served multiple purposes: smuggling contraband, moving individuals discreetly, or providing an escape route in emergencies. The second tunnel linked to the temple features a gradual slope with smooth walls that prevent easy climbing. At its end, the metallic hatch requires specific tools or codes to open, indicating restricted access even among island staff. Inside the branching junctions, most investigators found side rooms stocked with supplies, water, non-perishable food, medical kits, suggesting they could function as safe havens or holding areas. The faint sounds captured in some recordings, possibly voices or machinery, add to the eerie atmosphere. Construction details reveal international sourcing. Stone for paving came from quarries in South America, while electrical components originated from U.S. suppliers. This global supply chain mirrored the international network of associates and visitors. The octagonal temple design with its precise angles creates visual illusions that disorient those inside, making it harder to navigate or remember exact layouts. Whether intended as a ritual space or simply another control mechanism, it contributed to the overall environment of domination. Yes, the workforce dynamic deserves more attention. House managers maintained detailed schedules, ensuring that massage appointments did not conflict with elite guest arrivals. Chefs prepared meals that catered to both sophisticated palates and simpler preferences for younger individuals. Security teams conducted background checks on staff while ignoring red flags about activities. Many received bonuses tied to silence, creating a culture where complicity became normalized. Financial optimization turned human exploitation into a ledger item. Costs for travel, housing, and entertainment were tracked meticulously through shell companies. Profits, if any, flowed back into maintaining the infrastructure. This business-like approach distinguished the operation from random criminal acts, while making it a sustained enterprise with risk management built in. If the story concluded with Epstein alone, accountability would still fall short. The evidence of broader involvement, names in logs, patterns in flights, infrastructure supporting large groups points to a web of participation. Tunnels facilitated not just movement but concealment, allowing the facade of a paradise to persist while horrors unfolded below. In the end, the island stands as a monument to unchecked power and the dangers of secrecy. The FBI raid in 2019 pierced the veil, but the full truth continues to emerge through document releases and survivor voices. The tunnels, once hidden, now symbolize the depths to which some will go to protect their secrets. The industrial infrastructure proves the operation was never accidental. It was deliberate, financed, and protected until external forces intervened. To truly grasp the scale, one must imagine the daily rhythm. Helicopters arriving with new faces, boats bringing supplies, staff moving silently through corridors, victims navigating disorienting paths, and powerful guests enjoying ocean views while remaining willfully blind to the suffering around them. The library held books on science and philosophy, but also potentially records of transactions. Reception rooms hosted discussions that masked recruitment or planning sessions. The temple overlooked it all, its dome gleaming under the Caribbean sun as a beacon of deception. Underground, the desalination hummed constantly. Generators provided uninterrupted power, and telecommunications kept lines open to the outside world for coordination. And the tunnels connected everything in a hidden web, ensuring that no part of the island operated in true isolation. Evidence from the raids, digital files, physical items, witness statements builds a comprehensive picture that demands continued scrutiny. Victims' attorneys fought for years to unseal records, arguing that transparency was essential for justice. Their efforts combined with official investigations have brought forward details that rewrite the narrative from one of isolated deviance to systemic failure. The obsession with the dome distracted from the tunnels, just as surface luxury distracted from subsurface cruelty. As more documents surface, the story grows richer in detail, yet darker in implication. The two underground passages represent more than physical spaces. They embody the parallel world created for exploitation. One underwater for stealthy access and the other linked to the symbolic temple for internal control. Together, they enabled the entire apparatus to function beyond the reach of ordinary oversight. The raid footage with agents descending into darkness captures the moment when secrecy began to crumble. Armed figures on rocky outcrops secured perimeters, while others documented the interiors. The lone figure in some images, perhaps a suspect or witness, adds a human element to the mechanical precision of the setup. Insignia on equipment, trails of evidence, all contribute to a mosaic that cannot be ignored. In reflecting on the full scope, the island's transformation from undeveloped land to fortified compound required vision, capital, and complicity at multiple levels. Venture capitalists, architects, contractors, staff, guests, all played roles whether knowingly or not. The millions spent on terrain shaping, tree importation, villa expansion, and infrastructure created a self-contained domain where laws felt optional. The message from the evidence is clear. What happened on Little Street? James was not a simple scandal, but a cautionary tale about power, privacy, and the human capacity for organized harm. The tunnels, infrastructure, and testimonies ensure that the story will not fade. They demand answers, accountability, and reforms to prevent similar setups in the future. The Paradise machinery has been exposed, revealing the far darker reality that lay beneath for years. The work of uncovering every layer continues word by word, document by document, ensuring that no detail is missed and no victim is forgotten.